Brother Venkat, for giving me this opportunity one more time to share my perspectives and my experiences with this Divine Master who has blessed our lives in so many ways. And thank you all for joining. As always, I do this with all humility and prayer to Bhagavan that He guides us in our words, so we are able to retain the divine teachings and learn them and assimilate them into our lives in the right perspective. Having joined Puttaparthi in 1979, June, I was very eager to join Swami's college, mainly because it was primarily because it meant being away from home. For some reason, I wanted to be away from my home. Not that I didn't like my parents or anything, I loved them, I had great respect for them, but for some reason I just wanted to be alone. I wanted to explore myself and not have people telling me what to do, what not to do. And it is that kind of age, right? 16, 17, you just want to be alone. And so I was primarily for that reason, I said I wanted to be in Puttaparthi. Secondly, Puttaparthi was a beautiful village at that time, and I think it is still even today. Being raised in Mumbai, Bombay as we knew it those days, being raised in Mumbai and in the hustle bustle of the city, when you go to this village and you have to sit in bullock carts and go from Dharmavaram station to the bus stand or something like that, it was those days. Short distance, not too far out. But it was amazing. It was, the whole experience was new. And to top it all, that village atmosphere appealed to me simply because it was a few years ago or 3-4 years ago, before that, I had seen Sholay, a movie. You all perhaps, if you're from India and if you're familiar with Bollywood, that's one of the films that ran for I don't know how many years. And there the whole setup was in a village, right? So somehow that stuck in my head. And so all of this put together, Swami was not really in that picture. That's what I'm trying to say here. It was other reasons that I really wanted to be part of Swami's college. And Swami, of course, was one of the reasons, not the main two or three that I just cited. Swami was, of course, one of the reasons because he was the main attraction there. The stories that I heard from villagers, from old devotees that we met, was so fascinating that it filled my heart and mind with curiosity. I was like, who is this Sai Baba? I mean, I have to explore him. I have to understand him. I have to know him. And I have always been a person who likes to get things down to street smart. Like, I want it to make sense to me. I want it to become an experience within me. Otherwise, I cannot understand it. I will not be able to assimilate it. But I don't disrespect something simply because it's not my experience, right? Sai Baba was everybody else's experience at that point in my life, because I was not raised in a Sai family. I wasn't. There weren't grandmothers and grandfathers who told me, or parents who told me about Swami. I hadn't really witnessed leelas of Swami or miracles of Sai Baba as we know it, except one or two in Bombay. When we went to people's homes, they said, oh, this vibhuti materializing here. And I said, great, it's good for you. Whatever is happening is good for you. I needed that personal one-on-one connection. And it was very important for me. And it has always been like that. And it is there even to this day. Even recently, when I went to Varanasi in February this year, I wanted that one-on-one connection with that Shivalingam. And there was an experience that made that happen. So unless that happens for me, things don't click. And so that was an important reason for me to be there. And I was, as I joined Swami's college, that's a beautiful story as to how um, I met the principal and he said, you can join commerce, but then I'm keeping that part of the story short. And when I got my 12th grade mark sheet, because those days you didn't have entrance examinations and interviews and all of that, at least the first couple of badges, if I remember correctly, it was simply you have your grade sheet with you. We call it mark sheet those days. You had the grade sheet with you. You go to the principal and say, "This is my grades. I got in my 12th grade," and he would say, "Okay, fill up this application form," and that's it. A couple of questions here and there, and he would accept you. It was as simple and straightforward as that. But he had given me strict instructions. He said he has got strict instructions from Swami, and he told me strictly that if you get first class, that is 60% and above, you get into Bachelor's of Commerce, which you want to do. And I said, yeah, I want to do that. Mainly because my father said, if you're going to be in Puttaparthi, you have to be doing Bachelor's in Commerce. You're not going to do anything else. And for those of you who belong to this generation, we, as in the older generation, like in my generation, um, our fathers pretty much decided what we should do. There wasn't much of a choice given to us, I guess, at least in my case. My father said, I'm an accountant, I'm working in this company, you also finish your BCom, and then I'll talk to my boss and I'll give you my job. I can retire in peace and you can, all that. So that was kind of a path laid out already by my father. And so I said, okay, commerce. And when I got my grade sheet from the 12th standard, I hadn't done very well at all. I had got less than 50%. So it was kind of C plus or C or something like that grade in these days, if you understand that. It was 48, 47, 48% or something in your 12th grade. That's not a great thing. I'm not proud of that, but it doesn't get you any college even in Bombay because of the sheer competition. The standards are extremely high. So when I got that, I realized I'm in deep trouble. I'm not going to be able to get into Bachelor's in Commerce. I'm not going to be able to convince my father that I can join arts because I just needed something to be in Puttaparthi. Now when I look back at it, I realize that yearning to be in Puttaparthi was an inbuilt samskara. It is, these things are explained later in life for many of us, and for me especially, that these were doors that were set to be opened at the right time, at the right place. I do these daily satsangs in every evening, my time. And there was a question in one of these satsangs as to how come Hanuman just fell in love with Rama the moment he saw Rama? What was the secret behind that? And to me, it's the many lifetimes of relationship slowly building with that master, with the source, if you will. And when the time comes, it just clicks. So this was about to happen. I didn't know that this was a thing that would change my life. I didn't know all of that at all at that point. It was just a deep attraction that I need to be in Puttaparthi. I cannot go back home. I don't want to go back home. I love the village. I love this atmosphere. I loved the spiritual atmosphere. It was very much, I just felt completely at home in Puttaparthi. I don't even know how else to say that. It felt like this was my home at that time. And so I felt it so much in my heart, I didn't want it to go. So I would have taken any course that was available, bachelor's in arts or bachelor's in commerce or anything that was available. But given my grade sheet, I didn't have much of a choice. But I went and tried to convince the principal of the college, Mr. Sastri at that time, Professor Sastri, saying, please, can you help me somehow give me the bachelor's in commerce because I have to, my father will not allow me to stay and all of that. But he said, I know, son, I couldn't help you, but there is no way because I have instructions from Swami and I cannot go against those instructions. And so it was I was in a pickle, literally. I didn't know what to do. I had seen Baba, and I had spent a month in the summer course in Brindavan. I had seen Baba by then. I had seen him giving discourses. I was very much intrigued by what he spoke. He was very easy to reach. Um, and I like the fact that he would come out to meet people rather than we stand in line and go and meet him or touch his feet and all of that. So everything about him appealed to me. But it was not love at first sight. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is the one. He's the one. He's my guru. It wasn't like that necessarily. But there was a lot of attraction. I really liked him. I liked his personality. I liked the way he talked. I liked the way he mixed so freely with boys and youngsters, and that drew me to him. And so I really wanted to understand more of him. So I'd spent some time in Brindavan a month before this thing happened. I came to Puttaparthi to join the college. So it was May and June that I had spent with him, and June had already come in. June 2nd or 3rd or something, June 6th or something like that, it was where the college started. And I hadn't still got my admission. So my father sent a return ticket to me saying, "Come back soon, and we'll see what to do with you." And I dreaded that moment. That moment was the reason why I'm sharing that is there are some times in life when you all the doors seems to be closed. There is always one door open, but we don't get to see that. Somehow our vision gets clouded, and we don't get to see that open door. We tend to focus on the doors that are closed, and then we say, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? I can't take a decision. I don't know what to do. And then we turn to God. At that moment, as a young chap, 16, 17 years of age, I wasn't ready to pray to God yet. I was ready to be angry with him, but not pray to him. So I turned to what I guess many youngsters do. I turned to anger, and so I was very angry with Baba, with God, with everybody, thinking, what is this? I want to do something with my life. I love Puttaparthi. I wanted to be here, and look at this great shit didn't come out well, and therefore I have to go back now. And by then I had heard so much about Sai Baba and so many things that he can do if you pray to him and all. I said, there is no way I can. How will he understand what I am praying here in my heart? It doesn't make sense. So I wrote a letter to him. I said, let me give him this letter. And that letter was not of prayer at all. It was actually one of very great anger, saying, I came here with a lot of hopes. I spent 1 month with you in your Brindavan summer course. I did all of this. I'm going back, and I don't know what really all of this kind of poured out. And I said, the moment you take this letter, you're out of my life. I'm going back to Bombay, and I'll never again look at God and all of this, or whatever, whatever a young Amitabh Bachchan fan from Bombay will write, angry Amitabh Bachchan fan. That's what I wrote. That's what the anger was in me. And of course, Swami, many years later, that quality in me persisted, because many years later, for some reason, Swami was pointing out to me. He said, this fellow in his anger is like Durvasa. In bhakti is like Ambarisha. In anger is like Durvasa. So there is a quote like that, I believe, in Telugu. I don't know. Swami said, Vida, it like that. So Swami was very aware that I would get angry at a snap. And I had held that letter in my hand. I'm sitting first in the line for darshan, because I could choose. You go early, you get to sit first. So I went at 2 o'clock or 2:30 p.m. itself that afternoon, and I said, let me do this because I have to leave the next day or the day after. And so let me give it to him, look into his eyes, and tell him, this is what I think of you. Give it to him and go. And so let me reduce the volume a little bit. Sorry. And so if some of you are joining and just reduce the audio. Okay. And so I was holding that envelope, being ready to give it to Baba, look into his eyes and tell him how angry I am with him and leave this place. And so I sat there, and Swami came and came up to me, and all I thought is, I'm just going to give that letter and go away. and it'll get all over, because there was at that point no prayer, no asking, nothing like that. I didn't even know what to say. I was so angry, filled with anger and disappointment, frustration. And so I was sitting there. Swami came to me, looked at me, and he came to the envelope like this. You know, sometimes he picks up letters like this. So he put his hands like this and held, I don't have an envelope to demonstrate, but then the envelope was there. He kept his hand like this on the envelope, you know. Um, and to my surprise, instead of taking it, he just held it there and he said, "Kya hai? What is it?" And I was so surprised that he even spoke, because at that point I didn't expect him to speak. I didn't expect any such thing. The last thing I expected was an interaction from him directly to me. His very first words from him to me is "Kya hai?" Someday I'll understand a deeper significance of that. Kya hai? And at that point, I just knelt quickly and I said, "Baba, admission, admission, admission," because that was the only thing in my mind. That is the only word I used, admission, admission. And he said, "Admission? Admission Mangta," or something like that. And he said, "Yes, yes." And I said, "BCom, BCom," because I had to be clear that it is bachelor's in commerce that I need to get into, not bachelor's in arts or some other thing. Swami was so gracious. He said, "BCom?" Because that's what you call, it's a small um, acronym for bachelor's in commerce. And so when Swami said BCom, be calm, be calm. So that when I heard that, I know people were laughing around me when Swami said be calm, be calm. And it was very sweet at that time. I'll never forget that moment. And then he looked at the principal and he did something like this. Isko dekho, thoda, that kind of a thing. Look at this fellow. Take care of his case. Just pointed a finger, because the principal was sitting on the sands on the other side in the mandir. Boys had already, it was already 3-4 days into the admission. And then, of course, everything changed after that. I ran to the principal after the darshan. I couldn't wait for darshan to get over, because I knew something exciting had happened. The thing with this experience, of course, let me finish this. So I waited for the darshan to get over, ran to the principal, and I told him, you saw what Baba did? I spoke to him, and he looked at you and he did something, and principal was also all full of smiles. He said, yeah, come tomorrow. And I said, I want it in commerce, you know that? He said, yes, absolutely, come. Baba's indicated, so you can come. And everything changed after that. I became a Sai student. Every time I think of that moment and many such moments, it's very intriguing, because what I begin to understand there is you are filled with darkness and all doors around you seems closed, and you seem to think at that moment that there is absolutely no way out. But it is only a less than a snap of a finger, if you will, for the divine to change that completely on its head. It's a 180 degrees. Again, I'm going into degrees, so bear with me. I don't know. It was just that a single moment, and he changed it all around. Where was my anger? Where was my frustration? Where was my disappointment? Everything vanished just like that. The point there is how, if you only allow God into our lives, it is so fascinating. Things change almost instantaneously. So I don't believe necessarily from that experience I learned this, and I have learned it from many other experiences. I don't believe necessarily that, oh my God, I've been a sinner, or I've been, when we get into this kind of a mindset, who am I? I've done so many things in the past that I'm ashamed of, and I don't know how many more years it's going to take, and all of that. I think if there is divine grace, anything and everything can be set right. So that was it. I mean, so I joined Swami's college, and I never had to look back after that. So Pune Institute, I've not even been to Pune except many years later. I went to visit BK's Iyengar's yoga school, and I practiced a couple of weeks with him. He was a great teacher. Other than that, Pune was and has never been on my um, bucket list of places to visit, and certainly not the Film Institute. Not that anything is bad with it, but that's how it is. Um, Life changed. Swami said, perhaps in his own way, that I need to use this guy um, for other purposes, and he did. All those 15 years, I stayed in Puttaparthi. It was amazing how we were able to organize programs, bring in concepts such as sports meet, all things that young boys will find joy in. We did all of that, Bhangra dance and all of that. We brought it into Puttaparthi, because Puttaparthi was a hardcore ashram. And when I say hardcore ashram, it's like traditional ashram. There's no room for Bhangra dance and noise making and gymnastics and sports meets and football games and basketball games. It was at that time, right? And when Swami opened this college, all of that changed. Today, what it is a beautiful whole concept. It's like a model lifestyle presented there. A model lifestyle. That's what it is. A model way of education. Last time I was struggling for words. I think if I remember right, I was using the word alternate. But the right word is model. He presented a model lifestyle. Even today, it's a model way of living there. You begin the day with Omkaram. Imagine, highest and the most powerful mantra. He just said, start the day with 21 Oms. Then you awaken the God within with Suprabhadam. And then you go around singing Namasmarana. It's a very divine practice. And then you live a life very simple in needs. You need a roof over your head. You need 4 walls. And so that's it. A small little room for you to sleep in. And rest of the day you figure out how to serve people who come there. It's a very, very beautiful lifestyle. Even to this day, I know many of my alumni friends and brothers, as we call each other. They are all there. They've been there for decades now. To me, they're all saints doing that. Amazing, living that lifestyle that Swami set out for everyone. Showing the world how you could live a very happy, peaceful life in connection with the divine, in continuous, constant, integrated awareness, if you will, with the divine. So that is the place that drew me. That is the place I was part of. That was the routine Swami brought to all of us. And so when I got into the college, the next thing was, how do I establish that one-on-one connection with Swami? How do I establish that Swami gets to know me and I get to know Swami? I had to wait a long time for that. In the meantime, I met other friends in the hostel, made friends, made brothers. This hostel at that point, we call it hostel or dorm as you call it. It wasn't where it is today. It was inside the mandir itself. There were 3 floors, and we were all packed into those 3 floors, long big halls. We just had a suitcase above our bed and a bed down. That's all it was. We studied there. We slept there. We did that for 1.5 years or so, until when the hostel was ready. It's very fascinating as to how Swami started this college, how we brought in these allowed us to make these kind of offerings to him. In the sense, when we think of, when we study the scriptures and think of Shiva and his devotees, there is a very beautiful quote from the scriptures which says, Shiva accepts any any leaf that you even offer him. Patram, pushpam, palam, toyam, a drop of water, a flower, a leaf. Whatever you offer to the Shivalinga is accepted, because it is the intention that matters more than the actual offering. So when we were in Puttaparthi and as young boys, what did we know at that time, right? We didn't get the stalwarts like Vedanarayan and others who came in later. They look at him, he's such a stalwart in Vedas and Veda chanting, and he inspired so many boys, hundreds of them, to pick up and learn Vedas. So they were in Vrindavan at that time, I think, and they came in a year or two later. So there wasn't much of Veda chanting at that moment, at that time when we were there as boys. Though that first year, there was just bhajan singing, and we hadn't really started singing right away. So all of that was in place. And so when Baba came to inaugurate the hostel and the dorm, what could we offer him? What could we do? What kind of program could we offer Baba? We said we'll do Bhangra dance. Excuse me. We said we'll do Bhangra dance. We'll do gymnastics. We'll do some sports thing. We'll do something. And at first, of course, there was a great deal of hesitancy and resistance in the ashram, because the elders felt, how can you do such things? This is an ashram atmosphere. It's not a city thing, and we can't afford to bring these things into the ashram. But Swami alone saw it in a different light. He didn't think of what was the nature of that offering. He saw the intention behind, and he said, you know what, it's boys, let's go and see what is this Bhangra dance. And he saw us doing this Bhangra dance for him, and he said, "Paralidu, koti laga emo chestunaru. For like monkeys, they're dancing. It's good, not bad. Let them do it." So suddenly you found 50, 60 boys getting a chance to get a picture with Swami, and each one felt I did something that took me closer to him. So it has never been that only people who do bhajans are somehow doing something divine, and somebody who's doing Bhangra dance is not doing something divine. It's important we understand that lesson, because even today, when we were talking of parents and children last time, if there are youngsters interested only in the audio visual part of organizing a program, let's say, and they say, you know what, I don't know about all of that, but I can help you with microphones, I can do with audio testing, and I love doing all of that, and I'm going to be part of that. And they may not even be emotionally interested in bhajans or anything, but the fact that they are giving their best to make that audio visual component in the program really good is their offering to Swami, and Swami accepts that. Swami accepts that. Somebody else might say, I don't know all this, I know about stage lighting, I know about layouts in the stage, I will do all of that. Some other youngster might say that, and that's perfectly okay. That is also accepted by him. In the same manner as somebody sitting in front of the microphone, either giving a big speech on Swami or singing a bhajan on Swami, or somebody decorating his chair or decorating his altar, all of them are different services, different flavors. Somebody is offering from their heart something that they like to do. That is most important. The bhava has to be there. In other words, when you're in it, you're fully in it because you love it. Somebody likes the technicality of the audio visual equipments, and they love to play with gadgets and say, hey, let's do this wireless microphone, let's do this, let's do that. Then let them do it, because that is their way of experiencing happiness in what they are doing. And if the program is very well rendered at the end of the day, Swami is very happy because everybody did their very best to their liking. That is how we functioned as boys in the hostel, in that community, in the college. And that is very important for us to understand, that when you make an offering to the divine, it doesn't have to be necessarily quote unquote, doesn't have to fit into your definition of what spirituality is or a spiritual offering is. It doesn't have to fit into what is your definition of devotion. It can be completely different from your conditioned idea of what devotion could be. It could be a very new idea. But if that person, that boy or that girl, young or old, it doesn't matter, if that person finds their complete oneness with it, say, this is what I can do, and I like to do this, then that becomes an offering. I met a gentleman recently who was not necessarily a great devotee of Baba. I shouldn't even say that. Let me take that back. Who am I to say who's great devotee or not? But when I meant by that is he wouldn't be very verbal about what his feelings about Swami and what he thinks about Baba and all of that, right? In that sense, I meant. I'm not judging him. So, um, but he wouldn't come across as a devotee of Baba at all. He will say, oh, okay, Baba is doing something good, 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 good. Let him do it. But what he did from his angle, he said, I don't know to bhajans. I can't tune into bhajan singing. There's just too much clapping and noise. I can't tune into it. He couldn't tune into that. He couldn't tune into seva and all of that. He said, I don't know. I just can't understand what that is. But he said, if that's seva, I can do something. And he started doing it on his own, right? I was in a conversation with him, and he just said, I don't know if all this is seva, but what I do is, he's a big shot in some multi-million-dollar company here in the U.S. And he is a finance expert. And so what he does is he meets youngsters and he says, if you have a business plan, come with me. I will discuss it with you and tell you, and you try to defend your business plan with me. I won't charge you for it. There's no charge. It's my way of offering my expertise with you. That's seva. I told him, you are exactly doing what Baba is asking you to do. And he says, how is that? I said, this is what you're doing. You could be charging hundreds and thousands of dollars because you are such a big person in this and so much in demand, and you are taking some of your valuable time, a couple of hours every week, to spend time with one youngster who might say, I have a business plan, I have this idea, but whom can I talk to? Who can trash it down and break it down for me and bring me down to reality? You're doing that. You're offering your talent there. He said, this is all I know to do. This is what I enjoy doing. And I don't know if it's devotion or seva. That is seva. That is what I mean by you do any kind of offering and it goes to the divine. That is where work becomes worship. That's the way I understand it. Work becomes worship. Duty becomes God. Because in your work, you can find, how can I take this work that I'm doing, this talent of mine, whatever that is. In this case, in this person's mind, it was economics and finance and all of that, which you would say, oh no, that is all not spiritual. Let's discuss spiritual things. But for him, he converted that into a form of worship. He actually was spending 2 hours a week doing the highest form of worship, offering the highest form of seva. That is what it is. I know another gentleman here who says he's got a very very big chartered accountant practice, I would think. He's also a financial expert. And he says, I want to direct people to offer their donations to all these big projects, which are all selfless in nature. And so his goal is, by doing that, he is fulfilling Swami's mission of spreading goodness, peace, love, satya, dharma, shanti, prema, and ahimsa. For him, that is his goal. So when he is helping people save money on taxes and saying, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, he is actually, in his mind, he is saying, I am doing Swami's work, and therefore his work becomes worship. How fascinating is that? So you and I can actually examine, how can I turn my work into worship? What can I take from my work, and how can I convert that into a talent that I can offer to another person, to another thing, and make that a service? And service becomes the nearest and the dearest way to reach the divine. Why? Because in offering something without expecting anything in return, you unknowingly expand your consciousness. You become one with that person in front of you. You feel that person's need. You are working for that other person's benefit, not yours. And in those divine moments of service, the I in you begins to go down, and the he in the person in front, he or she in the person in the front, begins to become more important. Because the rest of the time, think of it, it is always I have to get up, I have to sleep, I have to brush my teeth, I have to have my coffee. It's I constantly. So in service, that I goes down and the he comes up. So there's no fancy techniques in meditation, there's no fancy techniques in pranayama or nothing like that. Service makes it very simple, very easy for you to see what do people need, what can I give to people what they need, how can I take this talent and offer it to somebody else who will need it with no expectation in return, and offering it to the best of your ability. These were the lessons Swami taught us as students in Puttaparthi. Not only through discourses, but he made us do these things, right? Everyone there was working, and that is one beautiful thing in the organization of Sri Satya Sai, is nobody does anything for a pat on the back from someone else within the organization. It is all, everybody does it because they have a personal link with Sai Baba. They have a personal link with Swami. And therefore, I am doing this because it is for Swami. Whether others like it or not, it doesn't really matter. That is the beauty, and that will always be. That is a very, very unique feature. Nobody expects a thank you at the end of a big grand function. Nothing. Everybody is happy just doing and being able to get an opportunity to be able to offer. That is all it is, an opportunity to be part of the divine, to be part of something larger than the little I and mine. That is one of the greatest lessons I have learned from Swami, and I'm sure you as devotees of Baba continue to learn this lesson of service in any manner possible. It is not only making sandwiches once a week for the homeless, or doing something as what we call projects. When service becomes your very nature and you become helpful by nature, then you have understood the essence of what service is. So we grew up in that atmosphere in Puttaparthi. But I wanted that one-on-one with Swami. I never got that one-on-one for a long time. I had to wait 1.5 years till the hostel inauguration. And then I performed some yoga on the rope and some events that brought me close to Swami. Because after that event, when I performed, I jumped through rings of fire and did some yoga on the rope. Because I had learned yoga in Bombay. I've been into yoga for a long time from childhood. I mean, every child goes through yoga in India. But somehow I hooked onto it. I liked it for whatever reason, and like I said, it's something over lifetimes. Now I realize that without a doubt in my mind. But I continued. I learned it. So in Bombay they have Rassi Malkam. They call it Malkam in Maharashtra. Rassi Malkam and Kati Malkam and all of that. So I had learned those things, and when it came to Puttaparthi, I was able to offer that to the divine because that is the only thing I knew. And I saw a small little window of opportunity there of just me offering something alone that Swami could say, oh, who's that boy? What's his name? That kind of a thing, which I wanted desperately. And I got that because next day Swami called me after that event. Swami asked me my name, where I came from, and all of that. And so that one-on-one was established so beautifully. And from there, 1980, 81, it just, the relation with Swami blossomed so beautifully. At first, it was curiosity. What does he do? What is in his room? How does his room look like? What is his daily schedule and all of that? I really needed to have first-hand knowledge about that. And so when he called me for interview and all of that, one thing led to the other, and I find myself in his room along with 4 other boys. We were called the room duty boys, room duty, room duty, and so, or portico duty or room duty, whatever you call it. That's how they called it. And so we were basically cleaning up the rooms of Swami and tidying it up and getting it ready for the interview and all of that. So we were at his beck and call, if you will, from early in the morning till late at night. From curiosity, my relationship, and I say this in many places because that's exactly how it was. From curiosity, it became admiration for him. Because when I saw him live a very tenacious, austere life inside those 4 walls, He would sit on thrones outside and act very royal and like a king. But within those four walls, he was just a simpleton. Right from the towels he used, from the toothbrushes that he would hang on to for a whole month, to everything that he did, there was a lot of simplicity, austerity. The little bed that he slept on, the tiny little bedroom that he had with barely any lights and barely a window, if you can even call it a window. Because these windows in Puttaparthi are made with wooden panels, the doors of these windows. Doors of windows, is that how you say it? The panels of these windows. They were made with wooden panels. So when you close them, it's really pitch dark. So you have to keep them open. There's a thick mosquito net. And Swami had three of those panels closed, only one little panel open. There was hardly any light into his room. I can never get over that fact. Only because how does one live in with sanity like this day in and day out, and all the time counseling, all the time his only pastime is there's no television in his room, nothing, no beautiful paintings to look at, no fantasy pictures that you can go into that imaginary world, no color schemes other than just pink and blue. Even inside his room, it is just pink and blue. How does one live like that continuously, day in and day out, completely focused in his mission, what he has come to do, with not even a desire to seek a break from what he was doing? There wasn't even a desire. It wasn't like what to do, I am stuck in this mission, I have to do it. No, it wasn't like that. There was enthusiasm, there was waiting to go for darshan, waiting to meet people, waiting to counsel them, waiting to give, and nothing else but give. So if there's another thing we can take from Swami, is the natural eagerness to give, and give your very best, not simply give for giving's sake, not give for when I talk about this giving, I spoke about this recently in some other satsang. There was a flood in Gujarat in the 90s, and Swami sent word that we should donate some clothes, and we donated some clothes. I'll keep it very short. And Swami later on said, no, don't send these clothes. I will send some other clothes. And he sent the clothes, and we were wondering why Swami didn't give these clothes. And later on he explained, said when people are in floods, victims of floods and disasters, they are already suffering. They have a very poor self-image. I'm putting these words in his mouth. These are not his exact words, but I'm just paraphrasing what he meant. They already have such a poor self-image, and they are already in depression and they're lost. And if you send old pajamas and old underwears and old bunions to them, is it really going to make them happy? It's going to make them miserable. And therefore I send new clothes to them. That is the attitude of his giving. To me, that's what makes him divine. How can we give and give to the best? Swami always chased excellence, always. And the beauty in that excellence was, how can we give and how can we make the most excellent giving? Focus on the giving, focus on the giving. To me, that's a great lesson. You focus on the giving. Don't worry about the getting part of it at all, because you are not in this picture. In the giving, the person who's receiving, people who are receiving are more important than you. You merely be that hollow instrument and allow the energy to flow through you to that people, that person, and make sure you are completely hollow, and that excellence is trying to be hollow. Because when the idea comes to you, a brilliant idea comes to you, your job is to simply implement that idea. It's nothing else. When I talk of Swami, these things these tears just keep flowing. The energy will just flow. So everything that he did, and today they are monuments, right? There's a super specialty hospital there, which is like an example of how you should be giving. if it's a medical camp that one is offering, if it is a medical hospital that one is building, how should one build? This is it. Uh, it is give your very best. If it's an institute that you are building, it should be the very best. Very best. He wasn't shy about that. And if there are, again, if there are youngsters listening to us, don't get tempted by that fact that to even believe even for a second that, oh, he could give best because there was money. There wasn't, like I mentioned last time, there was just enough at that point just to meet ends. At every moment it was like that with in the ashram, at least when I was there. And it was amazing how he didn't wait for something to come in order to give. He would begin to give, and the resources that were necessary for that automatically flowed. It was such a beautiful thing to watch and learn over the years. And now when I look back and keep going back to those, to every single project of Swami's, every single act of Swami's was always focused on how best can you give. Focus on that. Don't worry about anything else. Everything else will fall in place when the time comes. The universe will open the doors. And Swami himself mentioned that to me once directly. In context of some, either it was writing a drama that I was working on, or this gymnastics event, I'm not sure. One of those events it was, when he was sitting, I was sitting at his feet and he was sitting on his chair, and there was a beautiful moment when he said this, that you just focus on doing your best. Don't worry about who will like this, who will not like it, who will receive this, వీడి ఏం చెప్తారు, వాళ్ళు ఏం చెప్తారు అని నీకు ఇది సందేహమే ఉండకూడదు, or something like that he said. These kind of doubts should not even bother you. Follow your heart and do your very best. And the universe, he said, then the Navagrahagalu, all the 9 grahas, all the 9 celestial bodies, the 9 planets as we understand them, though planets is not the right translation of grahas, I'm just putting it out there, it's gravitational bodies. The 9 gravitational Navagrahas will come and become Anugraha for you. What a beautiful teaching that is. But how will that become Anugraha? Only when you focus on giving. He added that also. It will come as Anugraha when you don't think about yourself. You focus on the job, do your very best, make it the best program. That is what your job is. Anugraham vastundi, automatically it will come. So when we want grace of God to shine in our lives, in whatever aspect of our lives, whether it is finance or health or relationship or whatever that we focus on, what is important for each one of us at different stages in life, each one is important. Let that grace shine on that part. You don't worry about it, but you just focus on being your very best at every single moment, doing your very best, giving out your very best, using all the resources to be very mindful of every moment in your life, chasing excellence all the time. Success will automatically follow. Whatever that definition of your success is, it will get fulfilled automatically. You don't even have to worry about success. This is the message I get from Swami, studying his life, studying the way he did it. So those days, a few months that I spent with Baba in his room, was that curiosity led to admiration. Great deal of admiration. That admiration slowly blossomed into a deep attachment with Swami. I remember, and of course my practice in yoga also strengthened so much because he would encourage me so much into that practice, and guide me in so many ways. Simple things like passing by, he will mention something with my practice that I will be able to tweak it and help. And I'm writing about that slowly. So those kind of things may not fit into a talk here. But what happened in that was, there was a great amount of that admiration became, because I was young, I was growing up, I began to admire him. So Amitabh Bachchan was gone and slowly receded back in my mind, and his image was replaced by Swami, if you will. And I said, this is it, this is my role model. Because when somebody does something you can't even imagine to do, like living in a room like that, and constantly counseling, constantly focusing on giving, constantly chasing excellence, and just being humble by nature, being loving by nature, being very, very involved in every small little thing. Every little building that Swami would build in the ashram, or was somebody building in the ashram, he would go and inspect it. Where will people sleep? How will they eat? What will they do? Where is the bathroom? And all of that, including where the taps are. All little things, like pay attention to the small things. That was a great lesson I learned from him. So watching that, I became a big fan, if you will, of Swami. I became very attached to him physically. Very, very attached to him. If love is the word, then that was the first time I really experienced what love is. I said, oh my gosh, I couldn't think of anything else other than him. I couldn't think of anybody else other than him. I said, this is it. This is it. He is everything now. And I could understand why that attachment, that attraction was so strong. And he allowed it. He encouraged that in his own way. But then there came a time, and yet deep inside me, I wanted more of him. The more I got of Swami physically, the more I wanted. What I didn't realize at that moment was I was seeking the energy of Sai. I didn't know that, right? I was thinking, I want more of Swami. I want more. I'm not just happy with what I'm getting. I need more. I need more. Was that good or bad? I don't know, but that's exactly what it was, staying there. So my letters were constantly of yearning, of being, I want you more, Swami. I want more of you. And Swami would many times ask me, Inka yemra kavala? Inka emi kavala niku? Inka emi kavala? It's like, almost like a, a sign of helplessness. He'll say, what more do you want? I'm giving you everything. What more do you want? Inka emi kavala ante emi? There must be some limit to all of this. And he was stern with me. It didn't make sense to me at all. I wanted more. I wanted more. There was something in me that was waiting to blossom. That was something opening up. But I wasn't aware of that. It was happening naturally. And Swami was guiding me towards that, pushing me to that. That there is this emperor moth that comes out of his shell and begins to fly. I believe that the process of coming out of that before they begin to fly is very painful. And so it was something like that. There was a moment there in my spiritual progress that had to happen. An opening that had to happen, a big opening. From after that is I've never looked back. A big opening in my own spiritual sadhana that had to take place. But that was what was happening, because I had reached my goal of being with Swami physically. I got to him. I could press his feet for hours. I could do all of that, right? Everything I reached, and I said, this is it. I want more. And so I realized now that being in physical proximity alone was not enough. There was something more to it. But at that moment, as a young boy, I was thinking maybe getting more and more of Swami, being more and more close to him physically is perhaps the answer, because I didn't know any other way. I didn't know there was the next step. Swami encouraged me, then he became stern with me. And then it became to the point that he was actually angry with me. He started avoiding me completely. Pichivada, hysteria, he would say. I mean, I remember one session where he actually called boys and told and started scolding me so much, continuously for about 45 minutes. He was telling them how foolish I am, how hysteria and this and that. I think it was in that talk only he said he's Durvasa in anger and Bhakti in Ambarisha and all of that. Everything came in all of that was poured on. He was trying to cut the cords, the umbilical cord, if you will. He was trying to cut that, make me realize that Swami is more than just a physical form. But it was not going into my head or my heart. I was thinking Swami is testing me, so I need to go more. But in my letters, and so he avoided me completely for a while. But my letters would be, Swami, I explained to him what it is that I'm facing. Why am I not happy with what I'm getting physically? What is it that is driving me more towards you? Show me the path, show me the light. Show me, guide me, guide me. And I remember some of my friends saying, what is it that daily you write 2-3 pages to Swami? Because those days we could walk up to Swami's door anytime during the day and knock the door and then hand over the letter, not to Swami directly, of course, but to somebody there. I was there in that room doing that service, so I know that you could hand a letter and they would go ask Swami whether they can take the letter. Swami will say yes, and then your letter will go directly to Swami upstairs in his room. So we had that privilege. What a great privilege that was. So I would write daily at a particular time. I know Swami will come out from his afternoon siesta around 2 o'clock, 2:30. So I will have my letter ready. I'll go knock and give it almost daily. Um, and every day there was 2-3 pages to write. That's what I meant by he was my first love, because there was so much to write. Everything that was going on in my head, I would pour it into my heart and write to him and send it to him. So this went on for months, and I couldn't understand. I went deep into meditation and practice of yoga and trying to understand what it is. I couldn't. What happened during the course of that period, I had a lot of that, because we were singing in front of Swami. I had a lot of moments and chances where I could be sitting and admiring his form as he sat on the chair. And because of my great admiration, I had gone so much to love Swami and be so attached to him, literally, I began to memorize his form as he sat on the chair, because that would help me in my meditation, meditation on Swami's form, which is how I started meditation. And so every next day morning, I would say, what did I see yesterday in Swami's bhajan hall throne, exactly how it was. And I would relive that moments. And then there will be, to the extent that every single intricate detail fold of his robe, I would try and memorize. So it became very clear to me exactly how that form was, up and down. Because that is the form I just loved. That is the form I wanted at that moment. It went on to such an extent that I had perfected that form. I could easily close my eyes and see every single intricate detail of Swami's eyebrows and nose and eyelids and cheeks, and the mole on the cheek, his lips, his skin, a little double chin here, his robe, the gold buttons, the fold in his robe, the little folds that go into his armpit, and how the folds in his robe, how is the placement of his fingers. Every single thing became so clear in my meditation. I loved that kind of meditation, because that gave me that joy that this is my Swami and me in my inner space, and nobody can take that away from me. So that went on. But then there was this yearning, right? I want more of this. I want more of this. How do I experience more of this? And so after many months, Swami one day had picked a few of us to do some work. And I was there doing that work, do some work in his room upstairs, in that mandir upstairs. Most of those rooms was storage with boxes being donated by devotees. He would let it be there. And then he would one day say, let's open the boxes, see what is there to give. If they are good ones, he will give to people. Anyway, so I was there one day, and at that moment, there was one afternoon I was sitting and opening some boxes in his room, and he was sitting across. And then he looked at me, he said, what is it that you really want? I ran to him and knelt down. I said, Swami Kavala, Swami Kavala. And then very beautifully, he said, Nika Swami Kavala, Sai Kavala. Swami Kavala, Sai Kavala. Cheppu. And I knelt down and I said, what does that mean, Swami? What do you mean by Swami Kavala or Sai Kavala? Do you want Swami or Sai? I didn't understand. So in all humility, I said, I want both. Iddaru Kavala, Swami. And then Swami shook his head, not saying yes or no, but he just shook his head, almost meaning, no, I didn't mean that. He said, then he went on to explain. He said, Swami is talking to you today. Swami won't talk to you tomorrow. Swami will be in Puttaparthi today. Swami will be not in Puttaparthi tomorrow. He will be in Brindavan tomorrow. ఈ రోజు పుట్టపర్తిలో ఉంటాడు, రేపు బృందావనంలో ఉంటాడు. ఈ రోజు మాట్లాడతాడు, రేపు మాట్లాడరు. స్వామి అట్లా ఉంటాడు. స్వామి సాయి ఇంటనే జంటనే వెంటనే కంటనే ఉంటాడు. బట్ సాయి విల్ బి విత్ యూ, ఇన్ యూ, అరౌండ్ యూ. these are words coming out of his mouth, not in a discourse, not in a book form, but directly. Sai will be with you, in you, around you, above you, below you. ఇప్పుడు చెప్పు ఎవరు కావాలా నీకు? And I said, I want Sai. మంచిది, he said. మంచిది, తీసుకో. తీసుకో means take. So that he would indicate take namaskar. So I took namaskar and Swami rubbed my back. That was such a divine moment, right? So I knew at that point when I came out of that room and I went to bed that night, I sat up thinking, what did Swami mean by that? And there was something very big that happened that afternoon when he said, Niku Swami kavala, Sai kavala, and I chose Sai. What does that mean? So the next day morning when I did my meditation after Omkaram and boys are chanting 108 names, I would continue to sit there and practice my meditation. So when I meditate on his form, and so I started my usual meditation. I said, okay, so this is how it will be. So I continued my meditation, and at the end of the meditation, this thought came, but this is Swami. This form is Swami. But then Swami says, Swami kavala, Sai kavala. This form can be here today, cannot be there tomorrow. So where is the Sai? What is the Sai he talked about then? And so now that momentary greatness, that wonderful feeling, that afternoon that Swami had done something or told me something important, something big, suddenly vanished, and all that stood was, so what did Swami mean by saying Swami kavala, Sai kavala? What does that even mean to me? And so the next few weeks again was spent in deep introspection. This time I knew it was not for me to write to Swami and ask him to explain what it is. I knew in my heart that he's given me homework to do. I knew now suddenly that he is waiting to open a door from within. And I had to do that homework. So I would spend, I remember spending nights, I would escape from the hostel into the mountains in the night because I just wanted to be alone. And I wanted to look into the stars, and those days there wasn't Krishna statue and all of that then. So I went beyond into those hills, and I would spend the nights there. All we had was a sheet, a bed sheet, a small bed to put and stretch out. So I would take that to the hills and spend the whole night up there, and come early in the morning, sneak back into the hostel. But all that night I would just sit and think, what is it? Show me this way, open. What does a Sai mean? Open that door. And then it happened one morning when I was meditating on Swami's form. I ended up, as always, I would end up saying, but this is Swami, but this is the only thing I know. Unless I understand what Sai is, I cannot meditate on Sai or even understand or experience what Sai is. And as long as, like I said earlier, if I can't experience something, it doesn't make sense to me. I have to either go deep and find out what it means, or I will just say, you know what, at this time I'll just shelve it. So while I was praying in the nights and praying in the sense going deep and trying to understand what it means, meditating on that meaning, going into pranayama practice and all of that, thinking, what does it mean? If there is a Sai, then show me that way. Let it open up, whatever that meant. So I would end my session of Swami's form thinking, okay, but this is Swami anyway. There's nothing more I can do. And I would end it. Rather, it was like an anticlimax in my everyday meditation. But that morning was beautiful when I was about to end the Swami's form. And suddenly, with my eyes closed, I was sitting in the lotus pose. My whole body got locked. I couldn't come out of that pose. I couldn't move my fingers. They were all locked in the mudra. And my chin was down, which it was anyway during meditation, but it became fixed. I couldn't move. My body was locked. Now I understand why in yoga they call it bandhas. Bandhas are locked. Now these things happen naturally. So when it got locked, I couldn't move. There was a moment of slight nervousness or fear. What is happening? But immediately it was replaced with a sense of a presence in front of me, with my eyes closed. a presence that was glowing, beautiful, beautiful, glowing. I could feel a presence in the form of light. It was formless. And then that presence just filled it wasn't, I don't know if it's a pillar of light or how can I explain this, but for lack of any other term, it was like a pillar of light. And then suddenly the next moment it was filling the space below, and it entered my whole body. This was not in my imagination, because that's the last thing I ever imagined. I wasn't doing any light meditation as such for all of this to happen, because I could never relate to that light meditation, though I did that for a few times. And after this, of course, light became my favorite practice of meditation. But because it was Swami's form, I thought, what can be more beautiful than Swami's form? I just let it be there. But it was time for that form to manifest itself, right? This is what the reason I'm sharing this with us is, even when we are devoted and attached to the form, there will come a time when He will guide each and every one of you. He will do that. That guidance will come. It's directly proportionate to our yearning. And so the light filled my whole body. I could feel all the entire spine being completely warm, glowing, the whole thing. My first spiritual experience, if you will, in yoga. That was my first. And then it filled, and the whole light just shot through my head everywhere. Everything disappeared. And all there was only light. Only light. There was only so much of light that I couldn't even think. And at that moment, I realized, this is the Sai. This is Sai. I don't even know how long it lasted. Maybe 10-15 minutes, I would think. I don't know. But that experience of that light, that formless aspect of Swami being so glorious, so beautiful, so divine, filling with light. And then when I opened my eyes later, I came back to normal and all of that. It came clear to me that Sai was this formless, infinite, pure consciousness filled with light, energy, divinity. And that was all around me, up, below, intane, gentane, ventane, kantane, behind me, within me. The bliss of experiencing divinity is extremely powerful. That's why emotions come naturally, because it's blissful. And so, anyway, that opened that door. So, the weeks that followed that, words were forming in my head. I wanted to find an expression to that experience. And so I started writing some words, some kind of poetry. Something was coming in my head, and I was writing it. I'm not a poet or anything like that, but it was just happening to me spontaneously. But it was forming over 1 day at a time, 2 days at a time. And so the next 2-3 weeks, it's such a blissful mood, such a happy mood, that I discovered this high principle for the very first time, first-hand experience, right? So I was in a high, if you will. And so I started writing something, and eventually it turned out to be like this: I am light, I am light, I am not different from light. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. God consumes my darkness, transmuting it into light. I am light, I am light, I am not different. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. I am an outpost of the divine. Flowing through me is a crystal river, a river of light that cannot be qualified by human thoughts and feelings. I am an outpost of the divine. Such darkness that has consumed me is transmuted by the divine light that I am. I am light, I am light. I live in light, I live in light. I'm light's fullest dimension, I'm light's purest intention. I am light, light, light. This was a very beautiful poem that formed in my heart. And I was saying it as it came to me, and I started saying it. It became a very beautiful poem for me to meditate. Um, and I'll share with this at some other time more exactly as it happened, because I don't want to go slow into it. I'll go into that frame of mind, and it might disturb my presentation. But that light experience formed itself into words, because there's a very interesting aspect to the story. And when I formed that poem, I started saying it, and I started meditating more. It became my poem for me, for my mantra for me, and it brought back memory of that experience. And again, that passed. So that experience perhaps ended with that, right? Many years later, in 2003, not 2000, 2003 is when we came to Cleveland. This happened in the 80s, early 80s or mid 80s. So 2003 we came to Cleveland. 2004 or something. There's Ted Henry, whom many of you know now, who watch the Soul Journs channel on YouTube. If you haven't, you should check out Soul, as you spell SOULJOURNS, Soul Journs, like Journey of the Soul, Soul Journs. He's recorded hundreds of interviews with Sai devotees, and each of them share their brilliant, beautiful, heartwarming, touching experiences with Sai. So, so he was organizing a study circle every Monday in a church. So Maya and I were at that church, and I very briefly explained to them very briefly touched upon this experience. And I said, there's a poem that I wrote, and I shared that poem with them. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. And so everybody loved it, and I came home and slept, and I had a very vivid dream. We all dream, right? All of us dream, but there are certain dreams that become very vivid, and those dreams stay with us. All of us have this experience, correct? Especially Swami's dreams are very vivid and clear, so you remember them. And so in this dream, I'm sitting in the interview room with Swami, and there are others with me. All of them are in some kind of whitish robes and all of that. And in that dream, there is somebody like Jesus Christ sitting way back, leaning against the wall, looking at Swami. And I am presenting that experience to Swami, that experience and that poem to Swami. And Swami says, tell that poem, and I say that in the dream. And Swami smiles. The next scene is Swami is not there, but one gentleman sitting next to me, again with beard and whitish robe. They all look similar, like the Jesus Christ feel kind of a thing. He looks at me and he says, that's my poem you wrote. That is my poem. And then he gives me a card, a business card in the dream, and I take it, and all there is one word in that card. It says Kutumi, Kuthumi. I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow. And then that's it, okay? Anyway, so that dream gets over, and I get up in the morning. I was thinking, what is this word Kutumi? Is it the name of a person, thing, place, what it is? And why would that person, what is it in my mind? What is this energy that is saying that energy wrote this poem, not me? Because I know how this word formed in my head, and I wrote it. And then there was this internet. Then, of course, the internet had come, and it's a lot more better now, but we still had something. So I searched for this word Kuthumi, and I found suddenly a whole list of things opening up saying ascended masters, sage Kuthumi, and all of that. And I was surprised, shocked to learn that these masters, ascended masters, had some relation with Jesus and all of that, and it stands for ascension. They come and they live in a different dimension even to this day, and so on. Just like we have our rishis and yogis, the Westerners or Western concept believes in this ascended master. I had no clue until then. And so I saw that, and I was like, wow, what does that mean? That he gave me this poem. So I searched his writings, and I didn't come across it. And then I typed the first line of this poem on the internet. I am light, I am light, I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. And there it was, this poem. Somebody else had got the same poem, though it was a lot more in detail than what I got. Lot more in detail. And I couldn't get over that fact that here was this poem, which I thought I wrote, was actually given to me by an energy that was beyond our physical senses. So, my dear brothers, what do we learn from here is the aspect of Sai. When I talk, that when I say that your mind, when I spoke last time and I said you think of Swami, you become Swami completely, 100%, and your mind becomes that. You're filled with the Sai energy. I'm speaking from experience because that is absolutely true. Be very mindful every time we say Sai or Sai Ram. Every time we think of him mindfully, know that he is there. Because when we think of him and start yearning for him, then we are, instead of him, then I become more important, right? That is what is happening in that physical attraction with Swami. I was thinking more about I want him, I want him, I want him, I'm yearning for him. And I became more important, he became less. My yearning and me became more important. And he became much less important. But when I contemplate upon him and just become that person, in other words, be completely drenched in that energy of Sai, allowing Sai to fill and be one with that energy, then he is already there with you. And you come out of that experience more enriched, feeling a peace in your heart, knowing that you have been in touch with Sai. Right? To me, that is very, very important. That is the most powerful lesson I learned from that experience. And ever since, I've never changed my mind. I've never been able to, even if I wanted to. It has always been one of my most precious experiences, because that was my first experience of the other dimension, the opening of chakras, if you will. And then when this happened, it proves to me that there are other dimensions, whether there are rishis, yogis, and beings like the ascended masters, energies, gods, divine angels. There are dimensions where these are waiting, these energies are waiting to serve you and me, to help you and me, to guide you and me. And many experiences later, like I said yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that many of that experiences are so personal that I don't even know how to share them. But know this for sure, and I say this from my heart, know this for sure, that when you yearn for God, when you yearn for spiritual progress, when you yearn for the higher consciousness out of sheer love and devotion, know that your prayers are being heard. Know it. Just know it. You might find it difficult to believe because I'm speaking from my experience, but I'm only sharing that conviction. Know it is being heard, and keep at it, and wait for that. Like I said, the emperor moth coming out of that cocoon is very painful process. Maybe that is that yearning that Meera experienced. That is a yearning that Tyagaraja expresses it beautifully in his kirtanas. That is the yearning that every one of us perhaps have to undergo, because in that yearning, in that disciplined sadhana, in that time frame, if you will, we are actually coming out of our little cocoon and bursting forth to experience what is divinity. And once you experience that, once you are out of the cocoon, there's no going back in. There's no going back in our evolution. That is the beauty. You don't have to accept anything that I shared. I always say this, you don't have to. But know that there are many, many, many hundreds and thousands of people with such experiences in the world. Experiences with Sai, experiences with other masters, experiences with other dimensions, experiences, close encounters with death, where they experience these high dimensions. Science has not been able to explain this. and they will not be able to explain it because their approach is very limited. But yet they might break barriers if they open their avenues today. So today quantum mechanics and quantum physics is trying to go into the realms of consciousness, but they're doing it slowly, mindfully. They're trying to explain that in terms of science. They may be able to achieve. Anything is possible once you set your mind to it. Anything is possible for the human mind. So I should take back saying science will not be able to do that. But nobody, one thing is for sure, that nobody can completely put their finger on this vast, infinite cosmic principle that we understand as consciousness, that we understand as the Paramatma, that we call upon as the Brahman in the Vedanta, that you and I know as the Sai principle. There is no limit. When there is no limit, how can you say you understood? You experience a fraction of that divine principle. So I started with this the day before yesterday. I'm ending back with that same principle, that we experience a fraction of this ocean of divinity. And each of our experiences is absolutely valid. That is why I said yesterday, the day before yesterday, that celebrate our uniqueness, believe in your uniqueness, and believe in your experiences, because your experience is for your evolution, and they are so very, very important. You can learn from others' experiences. You can get inspired by others' experiences, knowing that you're not the only crazy guy. There are other 5 other crazy guys like you in the spiritual path. So it encourages you. But then you have to carve your own path, discover your own beautiful relation with this principle that we have come to call God, without confining this idea of God to religion and to dogma and to doctrines. That is one thing too that is important. Religion is important, I guess. Dogmas and doctrines are important. But those are stepping stones. That's like an institute where you learn certain things, form certain basic core values, and then you blossom. Allow that learning to translate itself into our everyday life. God is very real. Divinity is very real. Higher consciousness is very real. And all of this knowledge is there in our Vedanta, in our Upanishads, in our Vedas. And that has been time and again masters who have spelled that in a language that we can understand. And today we have hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations of Sai, discourses of this divine master, who's explained it in many, many ways that we can understand. So take any discourse of Swami, and there will be something in that discourse, if not the entire discourse, there will be something that will speak to you at that moment. Take that to your heart. Allow that it's called Mananam. Mananam is contemplation. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Swami would often say this. Shravana is listening, Manana is contemplating on what you listen, allowing it to slowly take whatever makes sense, right? Now, 90 minutes is a long session, and two, 3 sessions like this, and every week such sessions, they're all long sessions. But from each session, when you contemplate what is necessary for you at that moment, that will stay with you. The rest of it will become vague, and that's perfectly okay. You take that, contemplate, and then allow it to get assimilated into your system. In other words, let it begin to reflect in your thoughts, in your words, in your deeds. Allow that. Don't stop there. Because if that assimilation doesn't happen, there is indigestion, Swami would say. So, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, it has to translate itself into inner transformation. Let us all blossom. We are now little buds in Swami's garden. He is the gardener. He's provided us with all kinds of nutrition that each one of these plants, that each one of us are, the buds that we are. He has provided all kinds of nutrition, whether it is bhajan singing or service or Vedic chanting or jnana or studying of scriptures or analyzing his discourses or study circles. All paths he has opened. You can take a little bit of all, everything, and build your own. Allow that nutrition to blossom the flower. Don't stay as a bud. Don't dismiss spirituality to a later part in your life. Spirituality is not something that is going to stop you from being functional in the world. Spirituality is what is going to help you become the best in whatever you do, whether it is computer programming that you're sitting and doing, whether it is the financial calculations that you're doing as an economic advisor in your company, as a vice president of technology or economics, or see whatever it is your position is, you will only become better in that. You will be a better father, a better mother, a better brother, a better team player, a better leader, a better human being, shining in every aspect of your life, every aspect of your life, if you allow that divine being to blossom from within you. Swami has shown us the way. Swami has been the perfect role model to show what it is that you can do with your life if you truly, truly experience that divinity, allow that divinity to flow. I stepped out of Puttaparthi in 1994 fully convinced about Swami's omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence. And then life hit me like a storm when we stepped out, Maya and I, after being so protected in that ashram. It hit us like a storm. So I took my entire spiritual practice, locked it into the safety of my safe locker, both of us, and we decided to be normal human beings, quote unquote. But then that energy can be contained. With Swami's passing away physically, the doors opened. And once you open that door, then divinity flows, and all you do is share that joy. So thank you again for allowing me to offer my thoughts, my perspectives. May Swami guide us, each one of us, in this path. May each one of us fulfill the destiny for why we are born. Destiny, namely becoming one with God and living as the ocean, living in that God principle, living and allowing that God principle to shine through your thoughts, through your words, through your deeds, and that allowing that goodness, that divinity to prevail. Thank you. Sai Ram. Venkat, all yours.